Welcome to Nature Inspired Art and Life, and I'm Pauline Grace. So here we are looking at the first stages of making our sourdough bread. We've made our sourdough starter over the last week, and what we need to do today is to add 30 grams of water, 30 grams of flour and give it a mix. So that's called feeding your starter. Mine's just here. It looks lovely and bubbly. Tiny bubbles on the top, smells delicious, and what we're going to do today is actually a process that can take anywhere between 24 and 48 hours, which seems like a long time to bake a loaf of bread, but what we're doing is the No-Knead method, and we're going to let the fermentation process do all the hard work for us, and that takes time. And a bit like making our starter, the slower the better. So what do we need to do in order to bake our first sourdough loaf? Well, we've got our starter here, and what we're going to do is we're going to feed it. We're going to feed it 30 grams of water and 30 grams of flour. Okay, so let's do that now. Give that a stir around. So we've fed our starter 30 grams of flour, 30 grams of water, and what we're going to do now is we're going to leave it for a couple of hours for it to start bubbling. And I'm saying a couple of hours in my house, in my kitchen, because it's toasty and warm in here. It's 22 degrees centigrade, so it's really pretty warm. It may take up to 4 hours for your sourdough starter to become activated by the food that we've just given it. So there's a couple of stages in our making of our sourdough bread, and what we've done is, I guess, stage one, feed your starter. Now I'm going to do something now, and I suggest you do it with me. I'm going to separate my starter into starter that I'm going to keep in the fridge and come back to again and again, and then sourdough starter that I'm going to use in my first loaf. For your first sourdough loaf, you only need 50 grams of starter. I'm going to measure that out now, and the rest of the starter that we have, I'm going to put in a small bowl with a cover, and I'm going to put that in the fridge, and it will be fine. We don't need to feed it every day. We all need to remember that it's there and check on it. Okay, so we need 50 grams of sourdough starter to make our first loaf. Let's measure that out. Now, I've got the bowl that I intend to make the sourdough bread in, and this is a rather snazzy one because it comes with its own lid, and it's a glass bowl. So 50 grams of bread. So do you remember yesterday, and I was talking about, you know, when your starter's ready, not only because you get bubbles, but because it gets really glutinous and stringy, like stringy cheese, like long string. That's what I meant. I don't know why I didn't show you that yesterday, because I could have done. Okay, so I want 50 grams of starter. Spot on. Now with the rest of this, I'm going to put it in this teeny tiny little bowl. And again, it's a glass bowl and it's got a lid. Now you don't have to put it in a bowl, you can put it in a jar. Previously I've used a little plastic jar with a lid. The only reason I'm using a bowl is because I prefer using a glass bowl. I'm not quite sure why to plastic, but also this is kind of wider and easier to get to, and that's quite small, so that's going to go in my fridge now. So I told you that this whole process is going to take between 24 and 48 hours. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be letting our sourdough starter develop and bubble for a couple of hours as it is. I mean, it looks kind of lonely in the bowl there, but I'm going to cover it, keep it in the kitchen nice and snug and warm, and in a couple of hours I'm going to check it, and when the bubbles have started developing I'll go into the next phase of making. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about equipment. So you don't need any special equipment to make sourdough bread, but I've bought a few things that I think help me in terms of the process, and I just want to talk you through those. So the first thing I've got, obviously I've got glass bowls and the flour and a weighing scale, and I boil my water and then let it go cold. So they're kind of givens. But I use this little contraption which looks like an instrument of torture. But what it does is it enables me to do the first mix of the sourdough bread. The really good thing about the method that I use for sourdough bread making is it's called the No-Knead method, and what I'm doing is I'm letting the fermentation do all the hard work for me, but that takes time, long and slow, as I said previously. Another bit of equipment that I use is this thing, which is called a Banneton, and basically it's like a wooden straw bowl with a pattern in it, and I've treated it with rice flour on the inside to make sure that the dough doesn't stick. You don't need that, you could just use your bowl, and when we get to the technique I'll show you what you do. I do because I like the pretty pattern. Some more equipment is a razor blade. Can you see that? It's not because I'm from Birmingham, UK and I feel like I'm a Peaky Blinder, but it is because I'm going to score the top of our loaf before it goes in the oven, and in order to do that you need something very, very sharp like a razor blade or a sharp knife. The other piece of equipment is at the top of the cupboard and I can't get to it at the moment. A Dutch oven. To recap, we put 30 grams of flour, 30 grams of water into our starter, which was looking divine and bubbly. We've given it a stir, we've separated it, we've got a little bowl or a little tub of our remaining sourdough starter that's going to go in the fridge, and then we've got 50 grams of sourdough starter. That's going to be the basis of our loaf. A couple of hours I'm going to post part 2 of this to talk you through the next method of our no-knead making sourdough bread. Okay folks, hope you're happy and well. Speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.